It's been a while since I last released a state iceberg video. This and another video, which should be out in the near future, which will cover the South Dakota Iceberg, will hopefully make up for the long gaps between new entries in the state iceberg series. For those that don't know, an iceberg video covers a specific topic. The information about that topic is arranged from well-known to obscure. The further we descend down this iceberg, the stranger the entries become. As always, I'll be starting at Tier 2 so that we can get into the stranger stuff faster. You can find links to the original iceberg in the description. I hope you enjoy the video. Let's begin. Fourth least populated state. North Dakota, as of 2023, was the fourth least populated state, with a population of 779,094 people. Bakken Formation. This layer of sedimentary rock extends beneath the northwest corner of North Dakota to include parts of Canada and Montana. North Dakota was not really that big of an oil producer for a long time, but companies knew that billions of barrels of oil were 2 miles below the earth, approximately, in the Bakken Formation. They lacked the tech to drill that deep to harvest the trapped oil. This changed in 2002 when oil companies developed the hardware to drill deep enough. This started the Bakken boom, and North Dakota became the second largest oil producer in the U.S., only after Texas. Dakota Territory. The Dakota Territory, which existed from 1861 to 1863, extended to include both of the Dakotas and sections of Montana and Wyoming. It was shrunk to just the Dakotas in 1864 and broken up into the two states in 1868. The Dakota Territory region was disbanded in 1889. Dakota Access Pipeline protests. The DAPL, or Dakota Access Pipeline, received its first permits for construction in 2016. Rumors spread, saying the DAPL would threaten the water supply of the Standing Rock Sioux in North Dakota. These protests extended from 2016 to 2017 and got a lot of media attention. DAPL currently exists as a 1,172-mile-long pipeline that goes from the Bakken to Patoka, Illinois, then connects to a pipeline that runs to the Gulf Coast. Enchanted Highway sculptures. This highway begins at Exit 92 on Interstate 94 near the town of Gladstone and ends in the town of Regent. It extends for a total of 32 miles. The sculpture Geese in Flight is the first one you would see on the road. Other sculptures, in order, include World's Largest Tin Family, Teddy Rides Again, Pheasants on the Prairie, Grasshoppers in the Field, Deer Crossing, and Fisherman's Dream. These sculptures were made out of scrap metal by a man named Gary Greff. This project began when the Regent School, where Greff had worked as a teacher for many years, closed. He enjoyed his time living in Regent and wanted to see a future in which his nieces and nephews could continue to live in the town. Regent is around 32 miles away from the interstate, as mentioned previously, and Greff soon realized that his art book sketches could be a means by which he could draw tourists. He learned how to weld and, starting in 1989, built multiple sculptures that mirrored the spirit of his home state. They were constructed from scrap metal that originated from old oil well tanks. The most recent sculpture is almost complete. It depicts a knight fighting a dragon. The sculpture can be activated for a small price. At that point, the dragon will breathe a jet of flame, and the knight will respond with, "I am the knight, here to defend the castle." Fargo, 1996. This movie is a dark comedy and crime drama set in Minnesota and North Dakota. Many of the shots which depicted scenes set in North Dakota were actually shot in parts of Minnesota. You can find the wood chipper from that scene outside the Visitor Center off I-94 in Fargo. Fort Berthold Reservation. This reservation in the central region of the state is controlled by 3 affiliated tribes, the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Sanish. It's an area of 988,000 square acres on the Missouri River. All 3 tribes claim that they have existed in North America since the beginning of creation. The Mandan call themselves the people of the first man, and their history says that they were the first to emerge into the world. The Hidatsa derived their name from their ancient capital city. Their name means willows. The Sanish's name means the origins of people from whom all other tribes sprang. The Mandan and Hidatsa arrived in the area over 1,000 years ago, after they migrated from the Iowa region for unknown reasons. The Sanish arrived later from the south. Lewis and Clark. These explorers crossed North Dakota during their travels in the early 1800s. The group met their first grizzly bear while traversing an area south of present-day Bismarck. Medora. This town, a former military camp, was established in 1883 by a French nobleman called the Marquis de Moore. He wanted to establish a meat-packing plant in the area and named the settlement after his wife, Medora von Hoffman. Teddy Roosevelt passed through the town that same year as he recovered from the death of his wife. A massive blizzard ripped through Medora in 1888 and took out much of the cattle industry, leaving the city to slowly die. A businessman named Harold Schaefer entered the old cow town in the 1950s and purchased the Rough Riders Hotel, along with an outdoor amphitheater in the side of a nearby butte. Schaefer restored the hotel and made the amphitheater the site of the Medora musical. This show runs from June to September each year. I've actually got a description of it from the website. It's good, old-fashioned family fun with thrilling variety acts, live horses on stage, a firework finale, and new twists each summer, all while celebrating the history of Medora, Teddy Roosevelt, and the historic American West. North Dakota Heritage Center. This museum in Bismarck has multiple sections that cover the history of the state from 600 million years ago to the present day. It has 97,000 square feet of space and cost $52 million to build. There's some notable exhibits. Dakota is a 67 million year old hadrosaur mummy that was discovered near Marmarth, North Dakota in 1999. It still has intact skin and visible scales on its body. The world's largest giant squid fossil is at the Underwater World exhibit, along with the remains of an archelon, an extinct turtle that measures 12 feet long. International Peace Garden. This 2,300-acre garden extends to both sides of the U.S.-Canada border in the Turtle Mountains. The garden has over 155,000 flowers of different varieties that are broken up by small ponds, terraces, and walkways. There are multiple displays, like the peace poles, donated by the Japanese government in the 90s, the sunken garden, the floral clock, the Carillion bell tower, and a game warden museum. Accent. This refers to the strong dialect present in the characters from the movie Fargo. The dialect isn't as strong in North Dakota in real life, but is still present to an extent in parts of the state. Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park. Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park is the oldest state park in North Dakota, established in 1907. The park's boundaries envelop On a Slant Village, a Mandan settlement that was founded in the 1570s. Fort Abraham Lincoln is another attraction. It was built in 1872 and quickly became one of the largest forts in the Plains regions. sheltering 650 soldiers at its peak. Custer departed from the fort to fight the Sioux at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Norsk Hostfest. This cultural festival occurs each year in the city of Minot. The 4-day festival includes traditional Scandinavian dancing and folk music, comedy acts, and plays. Vendors sell dishes such as lefse, crumb cake, and fiskekaker. State nicknames. There are multiple nicknames for North Dakota. North Dakota's government loves to put the Peace Garden State on their license plates. This refers to the garden that straddles the U.S.-Canada border, which I covered a few entries ago. It's also nicknamed the Flickertail State for the abundant Richardson ground squirrels, which often flick their tails while running. The Rough Rider State name is connected to Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders unit that fought in the Spanish-American War. Haven Sanitarium. This sanatorium in the Turtle Mountains area treated thousands of tuberculosis patients from 1909 through the late 1940s. It was transformed into a home for the developmentally impaired after that point. It operated up through the 1980s. Stories of mistreatment and neglect surfaced in that time period, and San Haven was closed in 1987. It's been left to the elements in the intervening years. It is a fairly popular site for urban exploration. North Dakota Hymn. The state song in North Dakota's lyrics were written by James W. Foley and arranged by Dr. C.S. Putnam. Minnie Nielsen, who was the superintendent of public instruction at the time, contacted Foley to write a song about the state in 1926. It was performed live for the first time in 1927, but was not made into the official state song until 1947. It's simply titled the North Dakota Hymn. Here's an excerpt. North Dakota, North Dakota, with thy prairies wide and free, all thy sons and daughters love thee, fairest state from sea to sea. Alexander Mackenzie. Mackenzie was a Scottish fur trader and explorer who became the first European to cross the whole of North America above Mexico. Unfortunately, he's not the guy referred to in this entry. The real Alexander Mackenzie was a North Dakota politician who lived from 1850 to 1922. He was really corrupt and quite good at staying in power. That's about it. Dakota Thunder. This 26-foot tall, 60-ton concrete statue in Jamestown, North Dakota, is the world's largest buffalo. It was sculpted out of gunite cement by the artist Elmer Peterson. A wire frame holds the buffalo together. Dakota Thunder's story began in 1957. Jamestown was celebrating its 75th anniversary, and a local businessman named Harold Newman had an idea that would need a portion of the city's celebration funds. He wanted to make something that could compete with Brainerd's Talking Paul Bunyan statue. He got in touch with Peterson, who was a local art teacher at Jamestown College. It was unveiled in the fall of 1959 and remained unnamed until 2010, when the city, by popular vote, christened the buffalo Dakota Thunder. North Dakota Nice. This refers to the general kindness and hospitality of North Dakotans to their neighbors, along with strangers passing through North Dakotan communities. Northern Pacific Railroad. The Transcontinental Railroad arrived in the cities of Bismarck and Mandan in 1873 and exponentially increased the growth of both. Unfortunately, the Missouri River kept the railroad from expanding past Bismarck and Mandan. Ferries were used to transport goods from the railroad, but the river froze in the winter months, preventing them from operating. The railroad conducted risky operations, sending teams to lay tracks across the frozen river, which supported the weight of locomotives most of the time. Northern Pacific resolved the issue in 1882 when they finished construction of a 1,426-foot-long railroad bridge. The company began to send bulletins to major U.S. and European cities, and sent multiple delegations to Germany, Britain, and other European countries to advertise the North Dakota area. They offered free land to immigrants who wanted to settle the towns along the tracks. The towns grew, and trade increased with the waves of settlers. The railroad bridge that encouraged all of this growth is still around and operational, although BNSF Railways plans to replace it with a modern bridge. Elkhorn Ranch. Teddy Roosevelt arrived at his newly purchased ranch, named the Maltese Cross Ranch, in September 1883. He had plans to develop his cattle business. Tragedy struck a few months later when Roosevelt's wife and mother died on the same day. He left the East Coast for the Dakota Territories and continued to grieve. He bought another ranch north of Medora and named it Elkhorn Ranch. He invited a couple of his friends from Maine, named Sewall and Dow, to visit. They assisted and built a ranch house for Elkhorn. Roosevelt lost many of his cattle over the course of several harsh winters, and eventually had to sell the Elkhorn. Roosevelt missed the Elkhorn, calling it his home ranch. He wrote the following in a personal account of his hunting trips throughout the U.S. My home ranch house stands on the river brink. From the low, long veranda, shaded by leafy cottonwoods, one looks across sandbars and shallows to a strip of meadowland, behind which rises a line of sheer cliffs and grassy plateaus. This veranda is a pleasant place in the summer evenings when a cool breeze stirs along the river. The ranch was eventually bought out by the National Park Service and is now part of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Rupert's Land. This area gained its name from Prince Rupert of Rhine, a cousin of King Charles II of England. King Charles sent a commission to survey a territory that extended across much of eastern and central Canada, along with sections of Minnesota and North Dakota. It later ceased to exist with the formation of the Dominion of Canada in 1869. Salem Sue. You've already heard of Dakota Thunder in this video, but there is another giant animal in the state. Salem Sue is the world's largest cow, measuring 38 feet high and 50 feet long. Sue was built to honor the dairymen of New Salem, North Dakota. The cow cost $40,000 to construct and was completed in 1974. There's a poem inscribed near the base of the statue. It goes like this. Her presence shows that New Salem grows with milk producers' yields. We've got the cow, world's largest cow, that looks across our fields. All towns are cities. This refers to North Dakota's approach to incorporated communities. They are all considered cities by the state government. Center of North America. Rugby, North Dakota has been the home of a stone monument that supposedly marks the exact geographic center of the North American continent. It began in 1930 when an unnamed U.S. Geological Survey employee took a cutout of North America and balanced it on a pin, with the point where he achieved equilibrium being the town of Rugby, North Dakota. The town quickly learned of it, took that information, and ran with it, building a monument declaring them the center of North America in 1931. The new challenger approached in the 2000s. The owner of Harrison's Bar came out with a claim that the exact center of the continent was at a point around 100 miles south in the town of Robinson, North Dakota. Admittedly, the owner, a man named Bender, had calculated this with a group of buddies after going on a bender. He and his buddies took a globe, a tape measure, and some string, and calculated that Robinson, or Harrison's Bar in Robinson, was the exact center of the continent. Bender claimed that this was still a more scientific method than balancing a cutout on a pin. He then went online to see if Rugby had trademarked the term geographical center. It had lapsed, so Bender bought the phrase from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office for a nominal fee and hung the certificate in Harrison's Bar. The people of Rugby were outraged and called in a professor named Peter Rogerson, who worked at the geography department of the University of Buffalo. He took the latitudes and longitudes of the edges of the continent and plugged them into an algorithm. It determined that the center lay within another town called Center within North Dakota. In the end, Center got to claim the title while Bender gave the trademark back to Rugby. Bender insisted that he could keep this decal on the floor. Pembina. Pembina is a small town known for many firsts. It was the first European settlement and homestead within the state, and held the first organized church, post office, school, and border and customs house in North Dakota. It lies in the Red River Valley, which is nicknamed the breadbasket of the world for the amount of crops that are raised in the region. Dakota the Edmontosaurus. This is a fossilized dinosaur that was discovered near Marmarth in 1999. The duck-billed dinosaur was preserved so well, to the point that researchers were able to see the marks left by carrion feeders that tore into the body. It seems that scavengers picked through the carcass and left the Edmontosaurus's remains on a sandbar. It can be seen at the Heritage Center in Bismarck. Visitors can even touch the skin of the Edmontosaurus. A 3D cast replica of its hide is at the display. Snow Angels. This refers to an event in Bismarck in February 2007 that was organized by the State Historical Society. 8,962 people made snow angels simultaneously, setting a world record that remains unbroken. Dakota Wizards. The Dakota Wizards were a minor league basketball team who called the Civic Center in Bismarck their home. They played for 17 seasons between 1995 and 2012. They did okay, winning 4 league titles throughout their history. The NBA bought out the team and moved them to Santa Cruz in 2012, where they became the Santa Cruz Warriors. White Butte. This place is located in the southwest portion of the state, in between Amidon and Bowman. It's the highest point in North Dakota, measuring at 3,506 feet at its peak. Flag of Bismarck. This flag has a gold border. Within that border is a field of white over a field of red. A white star on a blue background is on the left with a head of wheat. It also has the name of the city and the state. Lake Agassiz. It's now long gone, but this glacial lake extended for 365,000 square miles, around 2.6 million years ago, extending from North Dakota all the way up towards present-day Hudson Bay. It completely dwarfed the Great Lakes, which cover around 94,000 square miles when put together. Jormungandr Wallhallaensis. This recently discovered mosasaur species was found in North Dakota and named after the world serpent of Norse myth. It was discovered by the North Dakota Geological Survey. A fossil with a nearly complete skull and skeletal structure was uncovered. It measured around 24 feet in length and had flippers and a shark-like tail. It was also a carnivore. It lived around 80 million years ago. Stairway to Hell. I covered this in a past video. The Stairway to Hell is in the ghost town of Tagus, west of Minot. The story centers around a church that burned to the ground in 2001. It's said that the former Lutheran church was used as a gathering place for a satanic cult after the town was abandoned. They conducted many sacrifices, and a door beneath the altar that once led to a food pantry became a direct stairway to hell. Urban explorers are discouraged from entering the area, Hellhounds lie in wait at night in the junkyard near the church. Tanis. This refers to a fossil site of the same name. It's said that these creatures died on the same day that the giant asteroid impacted Earth around 66 million years ago. Fish with pieces of molten rock in their gills have been found in the mass of dead land creatures. The asteroid strike in Central America was strong enough to wipe out wildlife that was thousands of miles away from the impact site. KRDK-TV Mast. The KRDK-TV Mast is a transmission tower near Galesburg, North Dakota. It's the tallest structure in the U.S., measuring 2,060 feet tall. KVLY-TV Mast. This mast is near Blanchard, North Dakota. It was once taller than the tower in the previous century, measuring 2,063 feet tall, but became shorter after the removal of the VHF antenna in 2019. It's now 1,987 feet tall. Wally the Walleye. Wally is a 26-foot-long statue of a walleye fish. It was built in a park on Main Street in Garrison, North Dakota in the 1950s. The town was mounting a massive campaign to promote tourism to the new Lake Sacagawea, which was created when a dam was built on the Missouri River. Garrison declared itself the walleye capital of the world. A competitor for Garrison has been the tiny town of Garrison, Minnesota, which also claims to be the walleye capital of the world and has its own walleye statue. Edwinton. Edwinton was the original name of what is now Bismarck. It was named after Edwin F. Johnson, the chief engineer of the Northern Pacific Railroad's operations in the region. He passed away during the project, and his colleagues wanted to honor him by naming the new settlement after him. The town was known as Edwinton from 1872 to 73. It's said that it was renamed Bismarck after Otto von Bismarck in order to attract more German investors. Fort Lincoln Internment Camp. This site outside of Bismarck held over 3,850 Japanese American and German American citizens during the Second World War. It had been used as a civilian conservation corps headquarters in the 1930s. It was expanded and converted into an internment camp in 1941. The camp was surrounded by a 10-foot-tall fence topped with 3-strand barbed wire, and 7 guard towers were placed on the perimeter. The complex was bare bones at the start, and the detainees were segregated by ethnicity. Accounts from 1945 recorded that the place was much nicer than other camps, with heated showers, gas heaters in every room, a theater, a ski jump, an ice rink, and a bakery, among other amenities. Segregation was eventually removed, and softball tournaments took place throughout the summer. Fort Lincoln's camp was disbanded in 1946 and became a headquarters for the Army Corps of Engineers and, later on, a job training center. It eventually was transformed into a Native American education facility in 1969. From what I've read, it remains open to this day. Hans Langseth. Hans Langseth was known as King Whiskers. This man still holds the record for the world's longest beard, which measured 18 feet 6 inches long. Langseth was born in Norway in 1846. He emigrated to the U.S. with his brothers in the 1860s and settled down in Kensett, Iowa. He grew out his beard for a contest at the age of 19 and continued to let it grow out as he moved west into Minnesota. Langseth threaded the hair into dreadlocks to maintain the health of his beard. He earned his record in 1922 in a competition held in Sacramento, California. The hosts of the venue were members of a beard enthusiast club called the Whiskerinos. Its members aimed to replicate the style of the Gold Rush pioneers, choosing to grow out their facial hair while wearing clothing accurate to the period. Langseth crushed the competition with his 17-foot-long beard. His closest competitor, Zach Wilcox of Carson City, Nevada, only had a 12-foot-long beard. Langseth moved to North Dakota, became part of a freak show, pocketing some serious money. He passed away peacefully in 1927. His beard was cut off by his children and donated to the Smithsonian. The beard was put on display in the museum from 1967 to 1991 in the Physical Anthropology exhibit. It was later put in storage. It remains there to this day. Edwin Benson. I talked about the Mandan language earlier in this video, and briefly mentioned that there was only one fluent speaker of the endangered native language. That was Edwin Benson. He grew up along the Missouri River and learned Mandan from a very young age. He was passionate in teaching others about his culture and the language. Benson passed away in 2016. Mini-Washitu. We finally have our first cryptid on the iceberg. I saw this image when I looked up the Mini-Washitu. Was filled with an intense sense of dread. The shadows in the corners of my room deepened, and I swore I could hear scratching at my front door. However, I summoned the strength to overcome my fear, despite the sheer creepiness of this depiction of the river monster. Trust me, if you're listening, you don't want to look at your screen right now. A glimpse of this gave me nightmares for weeks. The Mini-Washitu is a hairy bipedal creature that haunts the Missouri River within central North Dakota. It's around 8 feet tall and possesses a single horn set above a cyclopean eye. It has a tough hide and human-like hands. Dakota Nation legends say that the creature controlled the flow of the river at the end of the winter. It would smash river ice as it swam upstream to its summer resting grounds, releasing the water and warming up the Dakotas. It would make a horrible roaring sound and turn the water red as it passed through. Legends say that those who made eye contact with the monster would disappear and never be seen again. First mosque in America. North Dakota isn't the first site for a mosque. It's said that the first mosque was established in Biddeford, Maine in 1915. However, North Dakota is close behind. The Ross Mosque was built in 1920 on the outskirts of a town of the same name, Ross. It was constructed by Syrian and Lebanese immigrants. Russo. This is the smallest incorporated town in North Dakota. It boasts a population of 4. I found a quote from a town resident from an AP article that came out a few years back. It goes like this. "We've got an election coming up pretty soon," said Bruce Lawrence, mayor. "There isn't much to it. I'm the only one that votes. When I come up for election, I get 1 vote. Pyramid of the Prairies. This structure in Tacoma, North Dakota, cost billions of dollars to build. It was made to shoot down Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles in the 1960s. The Stanley R. Michelson Safeguard Complex was made and composed of multiple missile silos, a pyramidal radar system, and dozens of scattered silos full of surface-to-air thermonuclear missiles. It was a prototype. Its success would have resulted in the construction of 15 more pyramids around the U.S. It was closed in 1972, after many questioned its effectiveness and the massive costs involved with its construction. The weaponry was packed up and the facility shut down. The government auctioned the property off in 2012. An Anabaptist group known as the Hutterites, similar to the Amish, bought the complex that same year. (1897) Wapton Circus Incident. June 10th, 1897. The city of Wapton was gathered at the Great Northern Depot. The Ringling Brothers circus train had pulled into the station. The crew was unloading the tent with the help of several young men from the city. The crew was setting up the metal central tent pole when lightning struck, electrocuting the group. 2 were taken out, 1 mortally wounded, and several others injured. Despite this, the show went on, and over 7,000 people came to see the afternoon show. The town raised money to erect a granite monument to the men. The shattered pole can be seen today, its base, which is a concrete pillar, inscribed with the story of the incident. 1968, KRDK-TV Mast Incident. This incident occurred on February 14, 1968. A Marine Corps helicopter was passing by the structure when the rotor severed some guy wires, sending the helicopter spiraling out of control. All 4 of the passengers were taken out. Lost Dakota. This plot of land, which measured a few thousand acres, was ignored by the U.S. government while they cut up the region into the states of Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and North and South Dakota. No one wanted the territory, which was composed of undeveloped wildland. It was eventually incorporated into Montana. Murder Gulch. This section of 1800s Bismarck was also known as Bloody Fourth. This section of 4th Street extended from Broadway Avenue to Main Avenue. It was composed of saloons and gambling houses and was the site of many gunfights. Elks and sandboxes. This refers to a law that prohibits elk from being kept in sandboxes in the backyards of homes. It might be an urban legend, as I couldn't find any legislation or information on where or when the rule originated. North Dakota doesn't exist. This refers to a satirical conspiracy theory that's been around on the internet for years. I think that this 2009 joke article from Inklings News, a school newspaper in Westport, Connecticut, might be the source of the ongoing conspiracy. Flag of Benson County. This interesting flag was created in 2009 to celebrate the 145th anniversary of Benson County, which is in the Devil's Lake region. This image of the 2009 iteration depicts the outline of Benson County, filled with depictions of different towns lying within the county, along with a yellow border bearing the year in which Benson was established, and a rainbow. 2001 Haven Sanitarium Incident. Haven appeared earlier in this video. The sanatorium in the Turtle Mountains was the site of a tragedy in 2001 when a 17-year-old boy exploring the site fell down an empty elevator shaft. Wheel Turtle. George Gertbrett was an owner of the motel and thrift store in Dunseith, North Dakota. The year was 1982. Gertbrett had to clean out his garage, which housed his car rim collection. He had collected around 2,000 car rims as a side hobby over the past few decades, and thought that he could put the collection to good use. He contacted the artist Kurt Halverson and told him of his ideas for the turtle. Dunseith was near the Turtle Mountains, which inspired Gertbrett's concept of a turtle sculpture. The turtle stood 18 feet high and measured 40 feet long when the project was concluded. Tommy the Turtle. The statue was made in 1978 by Boots Reynolds, an Idaho resident. The artist, inspired by his vacations to the nearby Turtle Mountains, constructed this 30-foot-tall turtle riding a snowmobile made out of fiberglass. He shipped parts of the turtle and snowmobile by truck to the town of Bottineau over the course of a few weeks. Voter registration. North Dakota is, as of the time of recording, the only U.S. state that does not require its citizens to register before casting their vote. The only requirements for voters is that they must have lived in North Dakota for 30 days or more before the election began, and must bring valid ID to the polls. Hazel Miner. Hazel Miner, who was 16 years old, went to school with her 2 younger siblings on March 15, 1920. They took a horse-drawn sleigh to reach the schoolhouse, which was 2.5 miles down the road. A blizzard began to sweep the area in the afternoon. Hazel's father brought the horse and sleigh to pick up the children. He left the children in the sleigh and went to retrieve another horse left behind in the barn next to the school. Unbeknownst to him, the children went ahead and took the route that they assumed led back home. Mr. Miner went to retrieve the children, but the blizzard was increasing in strength. The children's sleigh had tipped over after running into a ravine. Hazel did her best to shelter her siblings from the wind by holding the blankets in the sleigh over their heads like the folds of a tent. The blizzard became more fierce, and she couldn't keep the blankets from being ripped up by the harsh wind. Hazel decided to pull the blankets over the children and laid on the edge of the blankets to prevent them from blowing away. Hazel passed away during the night, but the children were saved thanks to her sacrifice. Hazel Miner became a hero in North Dakota history. Alright, that is it for the North Dakota Iceberg. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to support me further, consider leaving a like or take a look at the links in the description below. Until next time, take care and have a great night.